Welcome to the Political Trenches, local government at work. We are back for another great discussion with another Saskatchewan resident. This time, Ian and I will be sitting down with the Honourable Randy Weekes, the former Speaker of the Saskatchewan Legislature and the founder of the Strengthening of Parliamentary Democracy Legacy Fund. Ian, are you ready to jump into the interview?
Given some what I've read about Mr. Weeks, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think there's some real benevolence in what he's up to, and I'm sure he'll have some interesting responses to some of the questions we'll put to him as well.
So, with that, let's head into the political trenches. We are continuing our journey in the role of leadership today. But how do we lead while trying to strengthen our democracy? The Honourable Randy Weekes served as the dedicated member of the Legislative Assembly for Saskatchewan from 1999 to 2024, representing Redberry Lake, Biggar, and Biggar-Sask Valley. A strong advocate for rural communities, he's held several key roles, including Minister responsible of Rural and Remote Health and Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. Now, in retirement, Randy continues to commit to public service through the Honourable Randy Weekes Strengthening of Parliamentary Democracy Legacy Fund. The annual $1,000 annual award supports University of Regina students who demonstrate a passion for democratic participation and inclusive leadership, with a focus on underrepresented and low-income groups. With that, Randy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Chris and Ian. I'm glad to be on your show.
We are so glad to have you on. Before I throw it over to Ian, I have one quick question to start off the overarching topic that we're going to be talking about today. And in your opinion, what are the key qualities you believe define effective leadership in a political context in the year 2025?
Oh, I think that's fairly easy to say. It is honesty, and that's a fairly broad comment. But I think leaders have to be honest. I think you look at the recent elections, there was leaders and former leaders that just were not honest with the people of Saskatchewan and Canada, obviously not honest with themselves. And I'm just not talking the federal scene, I'm talking the provincial scene. And you look at provinces and past elections where the leader was obviously so off base, where they had members in their own caucuses rebelling. There's an element of dishonesty, I think, at least intellectual dishonesty, if not dishonesty, and not being inclusive and making the right decisions for the party and the province and the country.
I'd like to switch, if I can, just slightly to your own journey as well, and talking about if you could explain to us kind of your political journey, how you ended up where you did, and maybe some of your key learnings along the way that go beyond just your comment about honesty.
Well, I have to, I'll continue on there. When I got into politics, um, it was the Saskatchewan Party had just been formed, and I started out as a constituency president, and then I got a nomination by acclamation, and leaders, Elwin Hermanson was our first leader, a good man, an honest man. It didn't turn out for him and the party, and the well. 1999 election was very successful. We didn't win. 2003 was a very disappointment. Then along came Brad Wall, who was, at the end of the day, was an honest man, intellectually honest with the people of Saskatchewan with caucus. After that, with the election of Scott Moe as leader of the Saskatchewan Party and assumed the role as premier, it soon became evident that there was a lack of honesty, intellectual honesty, period. And he surrounded himself with people that reinforced, those issues.
Hmm, thanks. What about yourself? You said you started off as a constituency president. You obviously got yourself elected. Then you earned the trust of your colleagues to end up in the role of speaker. And then eventually you decided not to be elected anymore too. So what was your journey through there? what made you decide to run in the first place?
Well, I've been asked that many times. I always was keenly interested in politics, small p politics, big P politics. I had dabbled in politics earlier in my life. And when the Saskatchewan Party was being formed, I saw this as a great step forward in Saskatchewan politics. The four Liberal MLAs joining with four progressive conservative MLAs to form the Saskatchewan Party. It looked like the right thing to do. I went to a informational meeting in Rosetown in 1997, and it was during harvest. So my previous experience with other political parties at any time of the year, let alone during harvest, that there would be a handful of people at this meeting. And in Rosetown, I soon realized it was in the Legion Hall, and I soon realized there's no parking spots well down the street and the road to the Legion Hall. I got there an hour ahead of time, and it was standing room only. It was a phenomenal experience, and you could just feel it in the air. And so anyway, long story short, I got on the steering committee to form the association, and then Rosetown Biggar. I became the president, and then in 1998, Elwin Hermanson ran, and he was, of course, a member of the Rosetown Biggar. Obviously, he ran for the leadership and won. Obviously, he was going to be our candidate. And there was another constituency, our party organizer said, called Redberry Lake. And I asked him about Redberry Lake. As it turned out, the boundaries in those times, I lived in Rosetown Biggar. I had land in Cutknife Turtleford and Redberry Lake. And the boundary of Redberry Lake just started 6 miles north of my house. So I started helping him organize and sold memberships. And like you say, the rest is history. I got the nomination, and I was elected in 1999 as the Sask Party member of Legislative Assembly.
So you took on the role of speaker. That's a fascinating role to me because of its not well, essentially nonpartisan role when you're wearing the robes of the speaker. What made you decide that that would be an interesting place to be?
Well, I had served in many roles. I had served as Minister of Rural and Remote Health. I had served as opposition deputy House Leader. I had served as government whip, government caucus chair, and I always respected the role of the speaker. The speakers that came before me were very nonpartisan and decent people, and I knew the challenges that they had with their own party, certainly with the opposition. But you expect that with the opposition. But I also knew could be a challenge with their own government members. So I really, uh, felt that I could be an effective speaker and serve the legislature and the people of Saskatchewan in that role.
Thanks. There are lots of issues facing every province and territory in this country. What do you see coming up in the years to come about most important issues that are going to affect Saskatchewan over the next like 5 to 10 years? And the kind of maybe a follow-up to that would be how would different orders of government work together to address them?
Well, it's interesting, the politics and the dynamics in this last 6 months has been incredible. I think, from Western Canada's perspective, energy and resources are hugely important. And I believe the commitment by the new Prime Minister and most of the provinces of reducing and eliminating trade barriers between the provinces is another issue that this is probably the one time in history that it can get done. And so I'm very encouraged that those types of things are moving ahead. We also have to remember that there is an environmental problem in this country and in the world. Yes, we need to continue to develop our energy resources, both conventional and non-conventional, but we have to look at ways of becoming carbon friendly, carbon neutral. That hasn't gone away. It's not on the radar right now, but as we see the sometime horrific weather situations around the world and even in Canada and in Saskatchewan, that's something that we should not lose sight of.
Do you find yourself at odds that way with either the prevailing mood in Saskatchewan about
Well, it's
having?
not being discussed. I mean, it's certainly in Saskatchewan, Alberta. I mean, it could appear at odds with, one of our major industries, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to figure that out. And I think individuals and companies and governments are continue to move in that direction. There's no doubt about dealing with the obvious climate issues, and we will do this together. And we're years and years away from um, eliminating the need for fossil fuels. And recently, I know that SMRs have been talked about for some time, and it's getting closer. So that's small, uh, small modular reactors. And so nuclear may be, and I think it will be, will happen in across Canada and possibly in Saskatchewan, and that'll go a long ways to phasing out coal. Coal is a huge issue, a dirty fuel. We have been doing that. When I say we, the province of Saskatchewan has been moving away from coal and going to natural gas for some time, and natural gas is a much cleaner burning fuel. So we are doing that. We've got Saskatchewan has got more wind energy and other forms, geothermal, and just numerous things that are being done out there. And it's not really being talked about, but it's happening and will continue to happen into the future.
Good. Just like to. Oh, Chris has suggested he wants to jump in here too. So please, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I just have a quick question on that because the resource industry is very leadership driven. It is one of the most important industries that both Alberta and Saskatchewan rely on for revenue resources, and it seems there's a political wind when it comes to those resources. What is it about the political leadership in those two provinces that rely so heavily on the support of the resource industry? Is it because they are the sort of the engines of our economies, or is there another thing that I'm not looking at? Because you've been in the Hall of Power, you've been around those cabinet meetings, whether it be Brad Wall or Scott Moe, you've been at those tables having those discussions. What is it about the leadership in the resource sector that makes people want to gravitate towards making sure that they're all right in 2025?
Well, I just think it's obvious an economic issue, jobs, and I want to make the point. It's not as we move forward, no one's discussing shutting down the fossil fuel industry in any way. Like I had said, it's going to be years and years, maybe never actually to phase out the use of fossil fuels at a certain extent. And so naturally, political leaders look to the industries that are in their country or their province, and they attempt to look after those workers and those citizens that rely on that industry. That's no secret, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Look at other industries that we have in Saskatchewan. We're a major producer of uranium. Uranium is going to be continue to be a big part of the nuclear scene. And like I said, we may have a reactor in Saskatchewan in the next few years, certainly more in Canada. Potash, we feed the world. And so we have a lot of things going for us besides fossil fuels, and we need to continue to, technology has helped, and it was only going to improve our situation with the use of fossil fuels and energy, electric vehicles, just goes down the list. Saskatchewan and Alberta and Canada is not immune to any of those pressures nor opportunities.
Before I throw it back over to Ian, I should just note that hopefully the small SMRs are can-do reactors, because the Saskatchewan uranium is built for those the can-do reactors. We don't need French uranium coming into Canada. That's just my own personal opinion there. I know I shouldn't be putting my opinion on the record, but hopefully they're can-do reactors and not another country's reactors that are being built for those SMRs. Over to you, Ian.
Oh, okay. Well, this paid political announcement brought to you by Chris Brown. I would like to switch the topic just a little bit from industry, perhaps, to the relationship between different orders of government. And that is maybe when you were working as an MLA, before that, even now. What sort of relationship did you have with like local government leaders, either constituency in your constituency or provincially? I ask that just because a lot of the people who are watching or listening to this program are local government folks from across the country.
Oh, generally, I think as an MLA, I have, and the party, Sask Party, has had a pretty good relationship with local government, especially with SARM, SUMA. There's always challenges. There's finances involved. Every level of government wants more money from the level of government above them. There's no secret to that, and. And so, there's, like I say, there's been challenges as an MLA. I would meet with mayors and reeves and councils in the constituency, and as minister, I met with as Minister of Rural and Remote Health. I met with 81 different people that represented healthcare facilities. So certainly, it was very positive. There's always challenges. That's not going to end. That's not, no government is going to say we fixed every problem. There's always more work to be done. And but saying that, I mean, I think the Saskatchewan Party in the last number of years under Scott Moe has deviated from many of those desires and wishes. And certainly it's not as effective as the Sask Party was under Brad Wall.
Well, thank you very much. So Saskatchewan has more municipalities per capita than anywhere else in Canada. Do you have any insights about how the province could, through itself or working with those local governments, help them to make sure that local government remains viable in that province?
Well, that's a good question. If I may go into a bit of a history lesson, when I
Please do.
was first elected, the Roy Romanel government was going to mandate forced amalgamation of RMs, and it was one of many things that cost the Romanel government and the NDP government of the day in rural Saskatchewan. It was bitterly fought. Saying that, does it need to happen? Absolutely. It's on a voluntary basis. There are some amalgamations, but nowhere near what needs to happen. And so it's one of those very sensitive political issues. But over time, I think it will work out, because I think members of councils recognize. I mean, if they don't have the tax base to look after their RM for various reasons, obviously they're going to need to join or do joint ventures with other municipalities around them. And those are many options without being a forced amalgamation that could happen. The smaller hamlets around the country, I know, around the province, in my constituency, I've had, I'm thinking of three that, the law and the regulation is when a municipality can't elect a mayor, reeve, or a council, that community automatically reverts to the RM, and that's happened, like I say, at least 3 occasions. And same thing with schools. That's I've had school closures, some are happen without much controversy because the community knows they don't have the students, but some very contentious, very contentious.
Thanks. The last question I've got for you before I pass back to Chris for some questions. Do you have any advice for people who might want to get involved in the political life of their communities or their province?
Oh, I would absolutely. I would encourage people to run. I think it's very important that we have quality people running for elected office. There's absolutely no doubt about that. This really speaks to the Parliamentary Democracy Legacy Fund that is in my name, and this is a chance maybe to talk that up a bit. It's through the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation, and the whole point of my foundation, which is under the umbrella of the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation, is exactly that, is to encourage young people that are to take political science. It's $1,000 bursary per year per student, and to encourage young people to that are going into political science to study in that field. And it doesn't have to be elected politics. It can be bureaucracy, work in the civil service. Civil service is so important to every government, and the legacy fund really speaks to that, to encourage people to get involved and excel in that area.
Thanks very much. Chris, we can't hear you.
And boom, I'm going to cut that out because I muted myself by accident. I apologize. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm actually going to pick up from that last statement because all my line of questions were about the Legacy Fund and sort of the strengthening of democracy in 2025. Now, as the former Speaker of the Legislative Assembly, you had to uphold democracy at the highest level within the Legislative Assembly. What does it mean to you to uphold democratic institutions and principles in your role, in your previous role of Speaker of the Legislative Assembly? And how can we learn from those challenges that you had during your time?
Well, I'll start off by two quotes from Sir Winston Churchill. I don't think anyone needs to introduce Sir Winston Churchill. I put that on my information on the website. The first one is, to safeguard democracy, the people must have a keen sense of independence, self-respect, and their oneness. Sir Winston Churchill. The second quote I put in there by Sir Winston Churchill was, the care of human life and happiness and not their destruction is the first and only object of good government. Those two quotes says it all. And so my time in as speaker, it became very evident that the government of the day wanted me to do their bidding. And when I say that, to make decisions and on points of order that there were no justification for. And I found that unacceptable. Other speakers find that unacceptable. And they just wanted me to do whatever they bloody well felt like at that moment. And as speaker, every day the speaker works closely with the clerk and clerk staff. They are the experts on parliamentary procedure. And whenever there was issues, points of order and things, we do extensive research and come back with a ruling. And it was based on precedents, not only in Saskatchewan, in the House of Commons, and ultimately back to the British House of Commons as well, rulings that go back hundreds of years. And so I found myself at loggerheads with the government, and I didn't back down. I mean, many times the rulings were in favor of the government, and many times it was in favor of the opposition, depending on the circumstances. But the behavior of the government House Leader, Jeremy Harrison, of the day was reprehensible. There's no two ways around it. And so, without going into all the details, it's all there in Hansard, my rulings, and when I made members withdraw and apologize, it's all in the record. And I actually removed 6 members from the Legislative Assembly while I was Speaker. They would not withdraw and apologize, and I would kick them out. And ironically, 5 out of the 6 were from the opposition NDP. Only one was from the government, and that was Jeremy Harrison. So they had the perception I was taking sides against the government in favor of the opposition. Nothing is further from the truth. It just opposition didn't play games and were honest practitioners of more honest, I should say, more honest practitioners of democracy and the principles of democracy.
Is our democracy broken?
Oh, it's not broken, but certainly you can see, in my situation in Saskatchewan, there are definitely challenges. There's no doubt about it. Now you'll see this in other situations as well. Well, United States, that's another topic. But you also see democracies around the world under threat. Some of them become autocratic. Is the United States heading towards that? I'll leave that up to viewers. And but no, not broken. But it's up to the leaders. That's up to the speakers. It's up to the premiers and prime minister and MLAs and MPs to make sure it doesn't break. I mean, there's got to be a limit to a check on people's behavior and what they do in the legislature and in the House of Commons. Which I'll just add right now. One of the things that I'm going to be doing is be an observer in elections in countries around the world and fledgling democracies, some countries that are just asking for help from former politicians and speakers to come and observe their election to make sure it's fair, and that's something that I will be doing in the future as well.
We often talk about leadership. Well, we're talking about leadership a little bit on the show right now, but what role does leadership play in ensuring the sanctity of our sort of sacred democratic institutions like a council chambers, like a legislative assembly, like the House of Commons? What role does leadership from all levels of government, whether it be mayors, premiers, cabinet ministers, speakers of the legislative members of parliament, cabinet, and prime minister to the governor general, what role does democratic leadership hold in protecting that democratic institution?
Well, it's fundamental. I mean, you look at the Prime Minister of Canada, the leader of the opposition, and leaders of the other political parties. In provinces, you look at the Premier, you look at the Speaker, and it's fundamental that the leadership starts at the top. And if a leader condones or maybe even encourages this bad behavior, that is a problem. I fundamentally believe that leadership does start at the top and it ends at the top.
Okay. I have to ask the political question because I already know, and I apologize, Ian. There's going to be probably an email sent to us in about 2 hours after this episode airs because I'm going to ask this question. How do you say that we need a fundamental change in leadership's sort of attitudes? When you were there, you were on the ground, you were doing the work, and you were there, and you were part of the government that you saw this happen under. Do you believe, and again, I apologize, I just have to ask this question. Do you believe that you should have done more in the time that you were given in the Legislative Assembly to stand up and try to protect that foundation of the democratic institution called the Legislative Assembly in Saskatchewan?
Well, under Brad Wall, I never felt the need, never felt there was a concern under his leadership. Um, it all changed with Scott Moe. COVID was another factor, and after that, it was obvious. Then I became speaker, so then I'm nonpartisan, of course, but it became obvious that there were problems. The pronoun bill emergency debate that fall concerning the pronoun bill was just so unacceptable. And the policies of the Scott Moe government ever since, I'm sorry, are unacceptable. They're playing games. Right now, it's the latest thing that's on the agenda of Alberta Premier Smith and Scott Moe's separation. They're playing a dangerous game. Uh, Scott Moe said he wouldn't know how he'd vote in a referendum about separation. Unacceptable answer. It's his duty to keep and protect Saskatchewan within Canada. Um, the Premier of Alberta is doing similar things. They're messing with our democracy, and I find it unacceptable.
I appreciate the honesty there, Randy. I want to turn back to the bursary and the fund for a second. What
Yep.
inspired you to launch this scholarship award focused on democratic participation and leadership?
Well, it kind of grew. It did grow out of my experience as speaker and talking to many friends. And it was suggested by people, why don't you set up a legacy fund through the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation? And they're an amazing organization. And my fund is totally within their fund. It's a separate fund, and there's many funds, but it's all administered by them. I jokingly said, or they jokingly said, they do everything. They've set up the legal framework. They negotiated with myself with the University of Regina because and concerning the fund and the bursary, and they administer everything. The money goes directly to the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation, and they and the and so the one of the people in one of the meetings, he says, we do everything but raise money. So it's my job or my responsibility, and I'm enjoying it a lot to raise money. None of the money goes to me personally. There's no expenses or salary paid to me at all. All the money people can go onto the QR code and just scan, and goes directly to the Randy Weekes Strengthening of Parliamentary Democracy Legacy Fund. And they can donate online, or they can send a check, and there's an address. They can send a check to South Saskatchewan Community Fund. And it's been a great, rewarding experience. I've had a number of speaking engagements and a lot of money coming in. And so the goal down the road is it's $1,000 once a year to a student. And but we'd like to expand that to $1,000 to more than one student, and also would like to expand this to the students that are going to the University of Saskatchewan that are taking political science. So it's really in its infancy, and it's very rewarding and well received.
So, for those who are looking to donate to the fund or help support the fund in protecting and encouraging, safeguarding our democracy, the links will be in the show notes. And I'm going to try and
Well,
do
okay.
something, and I'm going to try and do something without prior knowledge of giving it over to Ian. But we're going to try and put up the QR code in our usual little square right there that has Political Trenches Local Government at Work, and it says what
Great.
the title of is. So if you can scan the QR code there, you can go to the website and you'll be able to donate directly to them as well. And like Randy says, all the money goes to the bursary and not to him. So you're not giving money to a former politician, because I know that's sometimes a little bit hard for some people.
Absolutely.
But I want to just
I
add,
always want.
go ahead.
Yeah, well, I always want to say that because, people may be suspicious, but there isn't one penny. When I go to a function to speak or travel, It's on my own dime. I don't get anything back. One other thing that it should be said, it's right in the letter that you have, is that donations can be made anonymously. And there's a good reason for that, because in the political world, there's people that, are concerned about that privacy and the public perception of somebody from some political party persuasion giving money to possibly the perception of something else. And we've had money donated, and I don't know who donated the money, and I think that's important to say that.
So, a few last questions before we wrap up, because we are cautious of your time and we want to thank you so much for sitting down with us. What qualities or achievements are you looking for in students who apply for the bursary?
Well, I think I probably touched on things. Number one, honesty, personal honesty, but intellectual honesty. So when a student strives to become an elected member in the future or work in the public service, that they have the background to know what is right and wrong, and what it takes to be a good administrators. And I think that's very important.
We are seeing a generational shift in leadership in 2025, and I would say probably it's been going on for the last few years. Younger and younger Canadians are not getting into the leadership roles as they were traditionally 10, 15, even 30 years ago in the, like, I'd say 90s, 80s. Do you hope by having this bursary, this will spark some interest for people to get into those political leadership roles, whether it be a CAO, because you can take courses through the University of Regina to go through and become a city administrator in the province of Saskatchewan, whether it be
Yeah.
someone in the bureaucracy, like you said, or someone learning and trying to protect the safeguards of our democracy as a mayor, councillor, MLA in the province of Saskatchewan. Are you hopeful that this will change the attitudes of some younger Canadians to get involved and potentially pick up the mantle of the next great leader of the province of Saskatchewan?
Absolutely. I think it's fundamental that the next generation come forward and start taking on roles as elected members in councils and municipal councils, rural municipalities. Absolutely. Ultimately, as MLAs or members of parliament. But I like to focus back on the fact that people don't have to that they have to be an elected member to make a big difference. Being a very effective, honest member of the civil service is fundamental in our parliamentary system. Absolutely fundamental. And yes, I hope this, in whatever way, is to encourage that and encourage people to go into political science and strive to fill those roles. I think is very important.
I forgot to ask about the donations, and I just want to make sure I get this on the records. Are donations tax deductible or not?
Yes, yes, they are. Yeah, all that is administered by the South Saskatchewan Community Foundation, and they issue the tax receipts. And so South Saskatchewan Community Foundation is changing its name to Saskatchewan Community Foundation. It's certainly not only for South Saskatchewan people organizations. They have foundations all over the province, and they're in the process of changing the name as well. So it's certainly they have a foundation, I believe, in Meadow Lake and across the province. But that's the beauty of this. When I first got into this, I thought, oh my goodness, I have to do all this. And no, they do all that except for raise money. So I'm gladly raising money.
There you go. Just a reminder that the website link is in the show notes below, or if you can, I'm going to try and do this right. The QR code is on the screen right here, so be sure to
Good.
scan it and you can check that out. So my final question before we let you go, Randy, is looking ahead, what legacy do you hope this scholarship will leave in terms of strengthening democracy in the province of Saskatchewan?
Well, much as we discussed, I want I want people to be able to look at this legacy fund and look into the reasons behind why it was formed and my role as speaker. And people, there's also, there's a lot of information out there that about my role as speaker and my challenges as speaker and my concerns about democracy during that time. And I want that to be all part of the legacy, really, and to follow up and to be part of our parliamentary system. And as another quote by Sir Winston Churchill, he said, "Democracies are the worst form of government, except for all the others."
And amen to that. And I think that is the best way to end an interview about democracy and strengthening democracy with Winston Churchill. Randy, from both Ian and I, we want to thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with us about democracy, leadership, and the democracy, strengthening the democracy fund. I apologize if I'm getting the fund here wrong, the name of the fund wrong, but we truly appreciate your time and sitting down with us and chatting about the work you're doing and sort of how we are energizing the next generation of leaders in the province of Saskatchewan. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate the invitation to be on your show, and let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of the Political Trenches Local Government at Work, sponsored by Strategic Steps Incorporated. Ian, that was a great interview with Randy. He seems to be very knowledgeable and very opinionated on the state of politics in the province of Saskatchewan today. How did you feel like the interview went?
Well, definitely. I think anybody who gets themselves elevated to the position of speaker has earned the trust of the legislature that they represent. So that he would occupy that seat and still have some pretty fundamental opinions, I think is certainly good for the health of democracy.
For municipalities across the province of Saskatchewan who are looking to get a hold of Ian McCormick, the link will be underneath our photos right now. So head over to strategicsteps.ca and check out their great organization, which can come help your municipality plan for the future and make sure you make good strategic decisions heading into a brand new term of office. Ian, always a pleasure to sit down with you. Looking forward to doing it again very soon.
Indeed, Chris. See you soon.